Hello, lovely people out there. It's Jonathan Farrell here again, and in this video today, video number 5 of my cartooning series, I am finally going to teach you how to start drawing some human anatomy. And what I mean by that, instead of just drawing a simple cartoon character, we're now actually going to be drawing characters that look very human-like. And I know, with all of the art students that I've worked with in the past, being able to master drawing the human face is something that a lot of people consider almost like the holy grail, like the ultimate goal in being able to draw is, can I draw a human face? Now, with some of the simple tools that I'll be showing in this video, I'll show you it's actually can be pretty simple, be fairly simple. This will actually be split into 2 parts, 2 videos. This video number 5 will be about how to draw a human face from a straight on. If you're looking at a person face on, how would you draw those facial features and proportions? And in video number 6, we're going to be looking at how can we draw a human head from the side. So the side view will be the video following this one. So we'll just minimize this. And I'll pull up Sketchbook Express. All right, so if you're finding a new piece of paper to draw on, I would recommend that you fill up the majority of the piece of paper with, so I'll just show you here quickly. So fill up the majority of the piece of paper with the circle and the chin shape, and we will be going through this together. But I just want you to basically fill the page. In our other videos, we've had to draw the head at the very top. In this instance, the head can take up the majority of your piece of paper because that is primarily what we're going to be drawing for this video. I'm going to quickly just erase the chin. So yes, start by drawing a circle that fills 3/4 of your piece of paper. And again, as long as you're generally able to work out it, I would almost call it's a weird way to think, but it's almost like sculpture. Slowly chisel away, add lines as you need to until you've got, I'm even noticing different parts of my circle that I can definitely improve on, but keep things loose, use the eraser as you need to, work back and forth between the two, and we're not looking for perfection at this point, but as best as we can, kind of working out a circle shape. The next thing that we'll do, I'm just going to increase the size of my pencil. There we go. Is we're going to draw the chin shape. Now, what we want to do is draw 2 lines that come down at a very slight angle towards the middle of the face, 2 lines that come in, and then at the bottom here, there's going to be a bend, and it bends in towards the face, with finally a sort of a squared off chin at the bottom. Now this is sort of an overly simplified version of a person's face, but even if I bump this up, you'll notice that I've got right here, the circle of my head is, I don't know if you can see this, circle of my head kind of stops here, just kind of below the nose, the circular form of my skull. And then starting here, we've got 2 lines that come down at an angle. And then there's this, where our jaw is, for the bottom of our mouth, there's this joint, which is located, I'll quickly pull that up again, at this location here. So this is where that mouth jaw would be located, that joint. And then it comes in, and then you've got this flat part at the bottom. So we're simplifying what we see. So I'll just erase this quickly. Next, we can draw the line from the middle of our face coming down our face, and then the horizontal line, we want this to be halfway. So from here, top of the head, to the chin, the halfway point. A common mistake that a lot of people will make is they'll make the midpoint of the circle where the eyes are located. But is this, like if I draw this in red, is this the center of that face? It isn't. It's very high up on the overall shape of the head. So I just want to, I just want to encourage you to draw it. It's going to be near the bottom of the circle, but the midpoint between the top and the bottom of the face. The next thing that we're going to do is I'm going to zoom in, and we're going to draw 3 circles. Actually, I'll lightly draw this in red, that midpoint here. So we've got that line. And one thing that I haven't been encouraging you folks to do yet, which I probably should be as a drawing teacher, when you're initially sketching a drawing and you've got all these lines going on, keep your pencil lines quite light. Don't go in really dark at the beginning, because when you try to go in with your eraser after the fact, well, it's more like if I bring this amount erased down, it's kind of like you're trying, you're trying to erase something that doesn't want to be erased. You're going to end up having these lines. You're erasing, and you can't get rid of these preliminary lines. So keep your initial lines that you're drawing for your sketch quite light, and then work darker as you're finalizing what lines you're actually going to keep. With that being said, we're going to go into where our eyes should be located. We're going to divide this into, well, first, designate a little space on each side of the face. So just proportionally, it's not very large. You can see how small they are, but you'll notice on my eyes don't go to the very edges of my face. There's a little bit of a space on each side. Okay, so keep that space in your drawing. You want some space there. And then we're going to divide this overall span from this point here to here into 3 equal parts. So divide this. So you got 1, 2, 3 equal parts. And then you're going to draw circles to fill up that whole span. And you'll notice again, notice how many lines I've got going on. Definitely not perfect at this point. I'm roughing in, generally speaking. Actually, I'm going to bring that opacity down to about, there we go. Just bring it down a little bit. All right, so we've got 3 circles that fill that span here. Okay. The next thing that we're going to do, so you'll wonder, okay, what's going on? Things will start to make sense. Let me just minimize this video. Okay, there we go. Bear with me as we draw these shapes, and this will start to come to life as we draw out the basic proportions first, the skeleton of our face. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to, from here, this midpoint of the face to the chin, we're going to divide into 3. And if it helps to draw lines on the side of your drawing before you put them over top, it might be helpful. But from this point here, we'll draw a little notch. And often this notch lines up with the bottom of our circle. If it does, your proportions are fairly pretty much where they need to be. So the top, so dividing this bottom half into 3 chunks. So 1, 2, 3 chunks. And same thing with the top of the face. I'm going to divide this into 3 equal chunks on the side, and then divide this into 3 chunks as I bring this over. So 1, 2, 3, with the midpoint being in the center. They should be, just check to make sure that those chunks are equal in size. Take that moment. How do they compare proportionally? That being said, we can then go in, and I'll draw this in red. I'm going to draw 2 lines going from the centers of our eyes. So if you haven't figured this out yet, the reason why we drew a circle in between these 2 circles on each side, the question is, what is this center circle? Probably figure out these are the 2 eyes for our figure. Well, if you look at my face, there is almost exactly 1 eye width. It's hard to do this with the webcam, but 1 eye width is between the space between my 2 eyes is equal to the width of one eye. So it's like you've got a third eye right in the middle here that is equal to the width of one of my eyes. Okay, so what we can do at this point, just so we've got a little bit more clarity, let's draw some circles in the middle. It's going to look kind of spooky at this point, but it will look less spooky once we've got eyelids on there. But draw the pupils of our eyes right in the middle of those circles, and then we're going to draw two lines going from the center of our pupil down towards this mouth line. And this mouth line we're going to extend. So you'll end up with, I'll draw it in green if you've done this correctly, sort of like a square shape. Whoops. Here. Okay. It should roughly be about a square shape. And this is where the mouth is going to be located. Now, I guess we will go in and add some detail to the eyes. There's this temptation, as I've mentioned in other videos, to start into the detail of the eyes right away. This is something that a lot of people want to break right into. But at this point, it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to start getting into the detail of the eyes. So simply put, there's going to be an upside down hockey stick shape. So I'll draw this again in a different color. I'll use green. So we've got a hockey stick shape. So to exaggerate, you've got your hockey stick with, this is the part that's hitting the puck, with our long stick shape that you grab onto. But as long as you've got this sort of shorter end here and here with a longer piece sticking over to the side, you've drawn that correctly. Just going to quickly erase that. Okay, and the bottom of the eye, it's going to be a curve, and it's going to cut into the bottom of the eye. And often you'll see the bottoms, like one side of the pupil will be exposed. Like I could draw this so that one side, so there's this space here, I'll draw this in blue, here where the eyelid doesn't touch the pupil of the eye. If you draw an eye where the entire pupil is being covered, I'll just shrink this down, this whole thing is being covered by, or if you can see all the way around the eyeball, it ends up looking very like it's scared. It's like this scared, almost eerie, spooky look. One of the sides of that central pupil, that circle, should be covered by one of the eyelids. Next, I'm going to go over and draw the same thing on this side of this face. Upside down hockey stick with the curve coming around the other side there. And as I've drawn this, and I'll just keep these larger, if both sides are being covered, that's often the case with a lot of people's eyes. So again, hockey stick on the top with a bend. You've got this joint here, this bend, and it should be more towards the center. Notice that it's closer to this side of the eye than this side. It's not right in the middle of the eye, it's a little bit towards the center. Same with this, it's not in the middle, it's a little bit towards the center of the eye. I will just quickly erase this here. Okay, so we've got basic eye shapes happening. Because we're drawing the eye, I know this is something that lots of you love to focus on. You love eyes. We're going to, if this is a human eye, there's going to be there's this thing called the iris, which is the coloration of the eye, and the black dot is actually the pupil. But to simplify, we're just going to draw, as I've drawn here, a circle in the center of the eye with a white highlight overlapping. And I will do the same treatment on this side, a central circle with this white highlight happening on the side of the eye. So now we've got highlights happening inside of our eyeballs. Okay, the next thing we're going to do, let's do ear placement. We'll draw more detail later, but I want the general layout of these ears figured out. And if you look at my head, oops, I dropped my pencil. Sorry about that. This walk-on pen slipped out of my hand. The next thing we can do, if you look at my head face on, the ear, where the ear attaches to my head, so this part right here where it attaches to my head, it lines up with where my eye is located. You'll notice that the top of my ear curves above that line, but where it is attached to the head, that line matches where my eyes are located. Next, my mouth, or sorry, the bottom part of my ear, where it's attached, not the bottom part of the lobe, but where it's actually attached to my face, lines up with the bottom of my nose. So if we minimize this and draw our ear, we're going to have the ear sticking up above this eye line, but it's attached at that point, comes down, and it's attached at this nose line here. And one thing I'm going to do for you folks that are following my channel, I was given the privilege of doing a CTV interview. CTV is a local news station here in Saskatchewan, and I was given the privilege of doing a TV interview, and I taught them the same lesson, but because I was nervous, I made the mistake of telling them that the bottom of the ear lined up with this mouth line way down here, which is not the case. The bottom of the ear is the nose line. Being on TV like that was a new experience, and yes, I definitely made that mistake. Giving false information. So the nose line and the eye line, you've got the right placement and general size. Just going to shrink down the lobe of this ear a little bit of where those ears should be located. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to draw the circle of the nose. So to keep this shape and placement of the nose correct, just draw the circle, sort of this spherical shape over top of this point here for our nose. So you've got a circle, and then draw two other circles that overlap for our nostrils. Now there are different types of noses. We'll go over those details in another video, but for this time being, this will be a downward facing nose. We'll just follow the contour of this bottom circle and the two nostrils. And that's the general shape. And one thing I just want to encourage you when you're drawing the lines of the side of the nose, usually you're going to see a line following the form of the eyebrow. Now again, if I zoom up here, you'll notice even in this video, where's the indication of my nose? It's right around this circular, it's around my eye socket. And same with the other side. The sides of the nose that you're going to see are the sides that are circling around the concave area where your eye socket would be. And then you'll also see an indication of the roundedness of the ball of your nose. So same thing here. You're going to have a little indication of that. And that eye socket we don't actually draw the full eye socket. But it would be almost the shape of glasses kind of going around the eyes like this. That's where the eyeballs have been placed into. But in this instance, we just indicate a little bit of that line shape there. And a little bit of that spherical shape of that nose. And what I like to often draw on the nose as well is a bit of a highlight. Just a bit of a circular shape. Maybe another circular shape repeated behind it. Just indicating a bit of a highlight on the nose. And if you can erase a part of that circle, which is in red, from that nose shape, that's going to help you as well. And just indicating just a bit of the top curve here. and then this kind of connects. Another thing I want to encourage you, don't even draw the full line of the nose. As I said, it's these lines around the sockets and sort of this roundedness around the ball of the nose that you will typically see, and don't draw a full circle. But that's sort of a simplistic way of drawing a nose. And how do I learn these tricks? From observation. And you don't want everything drawn out. If I drew the full outline of this nose, it's not necessarily wrong, but it ends up looking not as convincing. What we can then do is, we've got that nose placement of the nose. For the lips here, we can do a letter M shape on the top. One thing I really want to emphasize here is don't have the M extend to the very edges of the mouth. There's this green space where that line exists, the line of that mouth. And same thing with here, we're going to have an upside down sort of rectangular shape, and we're not going to see that rectangle come to the very edges. There's going to be a little bit of that line sticking out on each side. Now, I don't know if you can see that with my lips, but you'll see just a little bit of a line on the edges of my mouth where my lips don't quite come to. Sort of that foldedness of the skin. And sometimes you'll see a little bit of a folding of that cheek shape here. But I'll just keep it simplistic for now. And then, in order to draw our eyebrows, we're going to draw two lines coming up from the midpoint of our eyes. Let me just erase this question mark. What is that doing there? So these lines, so I'm finding the point of our eye moving towards the center of our face, and where it stops, drawing two lines that come up. And this is where our eyebrows should begin. And then we're going to draw the circle of our eyebrow, sort of a ball shape. And then this comes out and it follows, just as we had here, the green line of that upside down hockey stick for the top of our eye. That same shape is going to be echoed in these eyebrows. And actually, I'm just recognizing here, the bottom part of my lip here, I'm just going to have a bit more of a curve. It's sticking a little bit too much the other way. And another little trick that, if you want for lips, if you have an upside down sort of V shape right in the middle, that will help as well. And even another little feature that helps with the overall believability of lips is if you can include just a faint indication of the lines of the lips coming up above. Now, what we can do is this top hairline of the head. Where should this hair be located? We can draw a line coming across the top of the head. So this is the top. So if we're looking at our head is divided into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 spaces. If we're looking at this top line here coming across, this is where the hairline would be for our character. And if you can draw a line going across the head with the two sideburns coming down, that will definitely help a lot. And I'm just going to shrink everything down just a bit here. Just be a moment. Scale that down. All right. One thing I'm going to do that's going to add a lot more believability, I'm just looking at this face as a whole, and I'm like, it's looking a bit robotic. One of the reasons is the eyes are a little bit too perfect. So I'm going to actually add some character to the eyelids. I'm just going to erase these green lines that I drew. And I'm going to start drawing a thicker line here. And it gets thinner. And I'm not even going to fully draw the full outline. So we've got these sort of thicker eyelashes sticking off of our character or our person. And that's, again, similar to the nose. If you don't draw the full outline of things, but you draw the emphasis of where it's darkest, it's going to look more believable, actually, than if you draw the full outline or contour. I'm also going to draw in our little pupils here. This always helps. And then we can even add some personality to our eyebrows just by drawing some random lines here. So all I'm doing is I'm adding some variance, some randomness to the drawing. And that's sort of an important lesson when you're drawing. And this will become very important when we draw hair in just a moment. Randomness is very important in making things seem believable. Okay, so we've got some of the hairs kind of sticking out. So this is more of probably a man. And then we will go in and draw some of our hair. So zooming into the top part of this person's head. One thing I want to quickly point out, and I did this in an earlier video, but for those of you who didn't see it, if I've got this person here with the eyes, mouth, a lot of people when they're starting to draw hair, they're going to draw every single line coming out. So they just draw hair like this. But I want to suggest to you, if you're wanting to draw more believable hair, we're drawing letter M and letter N shapes, so chunks. Drawing chunks of hair. And when I say letter N, you'll notice this like letter N, letter M, but chunks that go in and out and having randomness to what's going on as a whole is going to make something look a lot more believable. So I'm just going to erase what's there. Now zooming in, we're going to have the part of our hair. I'm just going to have a side part right here. Generally speaking, wherever that part is going to be located, you're going to have little hairs, sort of your, I don't know what the technical term is, but you're going to have your little small hairs sticking out from the part, and then bigger chunks that come out from that point. So the hair gets very big. See how I went from very small chunks to a very large one. Having that randomness, that variety is sure going to help in the overall scheme of making this look believable. And then same thing, we've got this hairline here. This hairline actually represents where the hair is, and I've got a really high one. Like I've got an abnormally high hairline. It's not because I'm balding. It's just how my hair grows. But that top line represents where the hair grows out of the head, not the line of the bangs. So if we're coming in and we're drawing bangs coming down off of the character, they should actually extend below. See how this is lower than this hairline? You want to have the chunks of hair coming down and below. Coming down and around. And then we're going to erase our extra lines here. All right, so we've got sort of randomness of hair. Okay. One of the final things we're going to go in and draw is our ear shape. Now this ear shape, if you look at my head from the side, if you look at the overall shape of an ear, like straight on, so this principle of perspective, this ties into those earlier cartooning lessons. The overall shape is wider, it's bigger than the front view. The front view, it becomes these skinny ovals on the sides of the head. So if I just minimize that, I'm just thinking these are actually a little bit too big. I'm just going to shrink these down, and the overall shape on the side of the head becomes like, should be these skinnier ovals. So So I will shrink this one down as well. So skinnier ovals. That everything should, and it, especially the side view, even the overall shape doesn't matter so much, as long as they're skinny and kind of longer, they're going to look fairly correct. I wouldn't worry about the shape so much. And then you can zoom in and add. At this point, if you just have a line, if I drew the side view of this ear, whoops. Okay, if I draw the side view of this ear, it's kind of big and rounded. The inside line, I'll draw this in red. Inside line would be this sort of curved shape with a lobe for the ear. Whoops. Why did I erase that? I want to give you enough time to look at it. Sorry. Forgive me. So this rounded part in the bottom of the ear with this part that kind of sticks around. This is sort of the simplistic cartoon ear. We will look at more of the folds of a real ear later in a later video. But if you, as long as you've got a bit of a curve on the bottom with this curved thing that comes around the top, you are golden. Same thing here. Curved part of the lobe with the bottom curve. And you've got a basic indication of an ear. All right. At this point, actually two features. These are sort of your the master stroke of drawing a face. If you go in and you can indicate a little bit of a ridge here underneath the eye that sticks out, bit of a ridge here, and notice that the peak of the cheek is about right there. You can draw these little things that protrude, so it's not a perfect flat line, but you've got a little bit of an indication of this eyebrow eye socket ridge right here. Then that will help with the believability of these eye sockets for the eyes. And what else? Oh, as well, on the tops of these eyes, if you can indicate a bit of a fold coming around, following this general curved hockey stick shape. The curves of sort of the skin of the eyelid. This will actually really help with the overall personality and look of your character as well. And finally, we'll draw a little bit of a neck on this guy. So we've got the pencil, make this thicker. Zoom in. The neck is actually attached to where the ears are. So right here and right here, if you can draw two lines coming down that kind of angle towards the person's middle of the face with two lines that come out, and then lines that come out again. You've got, so the thickness of this neck, the thickness actually shouldn't be indicated by these two top lines, but these lines underneath. Because these are so thick, he would look like a football player or a star athlete, where if it's made skinnier, you're going to end up with a person who looks more like myself. So just looking at him, I'm going to make him look a little bit more like me, with that neck kind of coming in a bit more. But generally speaking, the thickness of the neck should be where those ears are connecting to the head. And there you have it. Can indicate a little bit of an Adam's apple, bit of a shirt. And if this were a person, I'll just show you where the shirt would be. Make this a bit larger. So you've got that green t-shirt on, and then you can go in and erase all of your extra lines. So using my eraser, I'm going to go in and erase the extra bits that shouldn't be there. Zooming down. And I'll draw these lines in between as well. Just get rid of them. So once you're getting rid of all your extra lines, this thing will start to come to life. And even if you include, like for instance, I'll show you right here, this is the roundedness of the eyeball. As you're erasing, if you can keep slight indications of where that eyeball is, it'll actually look quite believable, because often the musculature and the skin surrounding the eye follows the form of the circular, that circle of where that eyeball was. So there you go. So this is the basic features of a person's face. One last thing I'm going to make. So at this point you could call it finished, but I'm just going to delineate this person at this point. It's almost androgynous. It almost stands in between feminine and masculine. But if you go ahead, if you're wanting to make someone who looks even more feminine, all I would recommend is smoothing out. And this is stereotypical. This is not true of all people, that's for sure. But if you just curve these lines and make them less jagged, just smooth out, and more of almost an almond shape, it'll look more feminine, especially if you add eyelashes sticking up on the sides. The eyelashes are one of the major tells, and plus your specific haircut. Although a lot of haircuts are definitely going both ways, especially today. But though having those eyelashes flipped up and then that more almond, less box-like chin will definitely help to make someone look feminine. And if I just rewind the clock here, going back to this chin that I had before, so now it's becoming a bit more masculine. If you really want to exaggerate this to be masculine, you can go ahead and giving it more of a box-like chin. So instead of being smooth, if you make it more box-like, with less indication of the lips, so just maybe slight indication of the letter M. It's going to be less defined, but just kind of this upside down M, or sorry, just the M with a flat line with sort of a more box-like chin shape. So when they talk about that chiseled chin, and even if you want to further exaggerate that slightly, giving a bit more of a chin. So if you were to slightly raise both of these, that larger, bit more box-like chin will make someone look more masculine. So thank you very much for sticking with me for this How to Draw a Face video. Please stick with me for video number 6, where I teach you how to draw up anatomy or proportions of how to draw a person's face from, instead of just straight on, from the side. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.